What's up, guys? Welcome to Podcast 412, Fight for Purity. A bold way of looking at challenges that young people are facing. We'll talk about the naked truth of life and how to handle the problems you're thinking but not talking about. So strap in, get ready for another great podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. We're going to continue from our last episode, which kind of cut us off, but we're going to continue anyways. So something I wanted to share real quick is if you went to school, hopefully you went to school, when you went to learn about communication, one of the things that they say about communication, and because we're talking about speech is a form of communication. So it says that 55% of communication is nonverbal. Does everybody know what that means?
It means not talking. No words.
Yeah. So it has nothing to do with like but 55% of your communication with somebody is nonverbal, and 38% is from voice inflections, which means less the tone of your voice going up or going down or whisper, whatever. But that's 38%, and 7% is face to face. So when you look at like what we're talking about like speech, and we're talking about the words that you say and communicating with somebody, just realizing that 55% of that is just nonverbal.
Like how you move your body and how you're sitting, how you're smiling.
And even like we talked about like the vibes that you get off of somebody. Usually, I'm sure it's probably true for most of us, but when you meet somebody, you kind of right away can kind of tell, is this person like somebody that I can, get to know, or you're like, no, I don't, and not even from having a conversation with them, but just meeting somebody, maybe just shaking their hand or right away. And so, like we said before, it's not that we're against, you being on Facebook or Snapchat, but, if you really want to build trust with somebody, which is one of the things that we talked about, you really have to be present. You have to be in a room like we are, to really get to know somebody and get to know like who they are. And I feel like that's so important, because most of us think that most of us think that most of our communicating is through speech, but it's not. It's actually just being in a room with somebody and kind of.
I mean, like, that makes sense, because, I mean, you can tell when somebody's listening to you just by how they're sitting there. You know what I mean? If I was sitting like this, like, the whole time, then you could tell I didn't want to be here, and I don't care what's happening around me,
That's like teenagers.
Yes, like, when they come in the room, they're just like...
Yeah. Hope they roll their eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And just
you can tell if they're really taking in what you're saying.
Oh, yeah. But, like, just the way you move, that's trippy. That's like half of what you're saying is just how you're physically standing there.
You're reading all that from a person just from being in a room with them, and you can't do that when you're on Facebook.
Well, even just like saying something, like you can be agreeing with someone verbally, but inside you're doing this.
Yeah.
Just shaking your head.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, because you have no idea where the other person is. If you're talking, you don't know what they're doing or you have no. They could be in the bathroom. They could be, working on their
toilet.
Yeah, like you don't know. You have no idea if they're even like paying attention to what you're saying. And at least here we can kind of tell. Even with us,
You can see the face.
Yeah, if we're just interested or we're confused, or I have nothing to say because I don't, like we have a loss, you can tell, but just by being, around each other. So I think it's important. And then something else that I kind of was thinking about too was even with language today, everything is being redefined. There was, there was a time where, you were a boy and you were a girl. That was the only choice, that was it. Boy, girl, even when you would read a book, boy, girl. Nowadays, we're redefining, what that is. Now you can be, whatever the pronouns, but with nothing to back it up.
Well, I mean, like, not even that, like, just from a language, like, point of view, because there's so much out there, it's easy to like get confused, like and not understand like what's happening, because there's there's too much.
Yeah.
There's too much going on, and you can't take it all in, or you can't really communicate because there's like all of this like other stuff.
Too many choices?
Yeah, there's like too many choices in the way, it's like being sat at the table and your mom has, or they've got like literally the whole table filled with food, and they're like, choose one.
It's like,
you're like, oh my gosh, like what? But I want this and I want that, and it's like, so it's just there's too many things, and I think that's part of the reason why it's so hard and easy, I guess, to trust when it comes like on to like online communication and everything, and just like in general, like it's easy to trust because we're like, I want to trust somebody who has an idea of what's happening, but it's also like so easy to distrust what everybody's saying because there's so many different ideas out there too.
Yeah, and then think about who you're trusting. So many people trust like actors or singers or, just different people that you have no idea who they are. You don't know what they value, and you hear them say something, automatically you're like, okay, that sounds like a good thing. Yeah. But you have no idea. You put too much trust in just what somebody says without really looking and searching. And I think that was one of the definitions that we talked about when we talked about, I think, speech, it was about, laying something to rest. Like coming to a conclusion that when somebody says something,
there's like a point
to it, and you can lay it to rest. You've kind of made your arguments for it. You've made your arguments for it, and you can lay it to rest and say, okay, I'm going to choose this because it's been laid to rest, And so, but nowadays, you don't even think about that. You just whatever. So.
Well, even just like saying stuff to be liked, because people can say all kinds of things, and it's only to get that approval from people that deep down that they want, because they're searching for it. And I think a lot of teens are searching for that approval, especially if they're not getting it at home. Yeah. They're going to go looking for it in music people, stars, actors, actresses, or anybody that just comes across to them as influential, I guess, in a sense. So they're going to take everything and just apply it instead of taking everything with a grain of salt. Right? That's what the saying is. Yeah. I was like, I hope I'm saying that right. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, it trips me out that we take everything that comes across, like, from social media or the news or, like, movies and music. We just take it. We're like, yeah, that's right. But, like, when we're interested, or at least, like, from what I've seen of when I used to teach and, like, what I hear from, like, teenagers now, like, when you're interested in another person, like romantically, or even like friendship wise, like you go on the hunt, we become, like FBI, cyber stalking, we'll go and we'll find that person's, any kind of social media account, old ones, we'll friend their friends so that we can see, we'll send messages and all this crazy stuff because we're interested in that person. And, like, what trips me out is that we will go the extra, like, 5 miles to figure out who that person is just because we're interested, but we won't do that with, like, the important things that are coming across our social media feeds.
Yeah. I agree, totally.
Well, because even everything's like TikTok or whatever, they're 1-minute videos, right? So you only get partial truths in everything, and if you're not willing to take the time to research, you don't really know what you're getting is true. Because what I've noticed is different things, like whatever you like and stuff, they'll start to give you more of that. So, like, sometimes you don't get the whole truth or all the sides. You just get kind of what you've been liking or, so,
yeah.
I mean...
Well, it's like everything's like tailor-made
for
you so that you like everything you see versus like the only way, like we've talked about it before, like the only way to like grow as a person is that sometimes you need those like opposite views, those opposing views. You need people to disagree with you because we're definitely going to be wrong at some point in our lives.
We're not always right.
And I think just understanding that everybody's sending you a message in some way or another. You're getting a message, and it can be positive or it can be, bad, but they're just using words to get that message to you. That's all they're doing is just using words, and you have to be able to decipher all that. and really think about what message are they sending. What are they, like we said before, that speech is all about trying to persuade you or give you information or entertain you. Are they entertaining you, or are they trying to persuade you of something that is probably maybe not good for you or not healthy for you? And I know it's kind of a touchy subject, but there's so much coming across social media now where you're so young, with all this stuff is we have a culture that just everything's just sexualized, like everything. You can be 8, 9, 10, but yet everything that's coming across, it's all about that. And honestly, if you're like in middle school, even high school, your mind shouldn't be there. You're not even, like, you're still maturing. Your body's, I know people probably hate to hear that, but
Your body's still
your body's still changing.
Sorry, you guys.
But you're like in the process of learning and exploring stuff, but to be caught up just in that circle of things, you're not supposed to be. That's for later, when you have a wife, or when you're mature.
Well, I think it's like when we're kids, we're not thinking about our future. I know I never did. I was not thinking, where's my life going to be in the next 5 years?
Yeah.
What kind of person do I want to be? It was just more about what makes me happy right now. What's something that I want to do right now or tomorrow.
Yeah.
The farthest I might have thought was like a week or two, into my future. And I think just realizing that, like, since, like, if you're listening, and like you're younger and you're still like in school,
Yeah.
like, just understanding that you haven't really figured out who you are yet, so you can't really trust like your own instincts quite yet.
Yeah.
At least not all of them. Some people, yes, you mature like super fast because like life happens, but like for the most part, you can't really trust yourself when you're like 13, 14, because your 13, 14 yourself just wants to go out and have fun. You're not thinking about the future, and you don't realize that, like, when you're 18, your 13 or 14-year-old self is like the dumbest kid in the world. You're like, why did I do that?
And your emotions are everywhere too when you're in that age. I mean, and like you said, you can't trust your feelings, because they're up, they're down, they're here, they're everywhere. You don't even know how to like manage those. So like you said, and like kind of like we were talking about earlier, like, learn what you like.
Figure out who you are.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean like, I don't know, like when we say like who you are, I know it's like such a big question.
Yeah.
But it's like what do you like to do? Not like, I like getting in trouble and I like doing this. It's more about like what makes you like excited to do things. Like, do you get excited to help people? Do you get excited to listen to music? Do you get excited, to go to the zoo and talk to the animals? I don't know. Yeah. Dancing, like what like genuinely like makes you happy. And I guess one of the things too is like, as a kid, like what helps you like escape sometimes, because that's usually what you really enjoy, is like what helps you escape the problems of the world. And sometimes, hopefully, it's like music, or it's reading, or it's something.
Well, I was just gonna say, not only like what makes you happy, but also what doesn't make you feel guilty afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you find stuff that makes you happy, but then like a few days later you're like, dang, I don't know why I did that. Because you're like, I shouldn't have done that. Because I, especially like with getting high and like getting in relationships, I know getting high is like such a big thing, especially like in middle school. I think it's like mostly when you're introduced to it is middle school, and your escape is getting high, and you keep doing it over and over again because it helps you escape. But then eventually, every pothead I know has always said, I'm gonna stop, I'll stop, and they never do. And if it was truly like something they enjoyed, they wouldn't want to stop. Like, but they're always like, I'll stop, I'll quit, eventually I'll quit.
Or they admit, like, I know it's not good for me.
Yeah.
So
For the most part. And then with the relationship thing, like, because yes, that person might make you happy for that moment or for those few months or whatever, but then your heart gets broken, or you realize you got issues yourself and you don't know how to love this person, you realize in yourself, I'm a jerk to this person. like and then that makes you feel guilty, whether it's on your end, you're breaking their heart, or they're breaking yours. And so, fine.
Well, I think when you're young too, what I've noticed is that you don't even know the person you're getting into a relationship with. You know nothing truly about them. So the longer, when you're older, you kind of know, what you like and whatever, so, you kind of find someone with similar interests. But when you're younger, you're getting in relationships with people, you don't know anything about their background. You don't know anything really about their personality, because everyone's trying to mask who they are to not be the weirdo.
Yeah, everyone's like their school self.
But not their true self. So eventually that comes out. You can't hide yourself forever, especially if you're in a relationship all young, you know? So it all comes out.
Yeah, because like how you're saying, sometimes when you're in a relationship, you don't know, how they grew up. You don't know if mom and dad were there, and if they were they good parents, and that affects how they are as a person. Are they respectful? Are they caring? Are they angry people? Are they? But the reason why you got into the relationship, you weren't thinking about any of that. You were just thinking about, this person is attractive, and they make me laugh, or or they make me feel safe for a second, or whatever. Or they did one nice thing. I saw them help an old lady cross the street, or something just these little, how we're talking about, snippets. You saw these snippets of them, and you liked it, and so you went, and versus waiting and being friends and figure out for sure if that's who they are. You just go straight into a relationship with them, and then you find out that, oh my goodness, this person has issues like I do, and neither of us know what the heck we're doing. But by then, you're in a relationship and you don't want to let go.
Yeah, because then you're creating this bond.
Yeah, you're
That's not meant for that age. You can't even handle
it's like we said, it's that whole trust thing. You can't really trust this other person because you don't really know who they are. But by the time you realize you can't, you're like, oh wow, that's it.
And you brought up, I don't know if you brought it in the podcast, but trauma bonding. Sometimes you're that can go with friends and in romantic relationships. Just because you guys went through the same trauma, if neither of you have learned how to deal with it yet, that's probably not a good
bonding experience. And I think a lot of at least for me, none of the kids now, well, when you're a kid, you don't really understand that emotions fade. You're not always going to be happy. There's a difference between being happy and having joy. There's a difference in feeling love or being in love or stuff like that, because there was a sermon that I heard pastor preaching on, and it's love's a relation, a responsibility, you're going to, I guess, do, with me, with my son. I love him. Sometimes he frustrates me, but because I love him, I'm gonna try to be, at least, all you can do is try, is be the parent that, I'm supposed to be, tell him things and hopefully guide him, especially now being 12 and moving on into 13 this year, is
and
I just need prayer.
A mother of teenagers now, just seeing them, they don't know how to handle stuff. I'm trying to teach them how to handle their own emotions and how to handle situations when stuff arises and everything, and so, and that's being where I am now. I don't know how it would have been if, I was still living how I was before. And teaching them.
Yeah, I feel trust nowadays, people, even that can be misinterpreted. Sometimes you think that trusting somebody is got to do with this whole physical relationship, and it's that's not trust. But that's kind of what you equated with. It's oh well, I trust him, so we're gonna hold hands, or we're gonna, it's that has nothing to do, kind of what you said, get to know people, build relationships as friends, and
in
then
person.
You can. Yeah,
and in
yeah.
person. Well, yeah,
in person.
That's kind of the whole point of communication. The communication is to build connections, to build relationships, to build trust. But you can't really build that if we're not face to face. Like you said, 55%. Literally, you're missing half of that communication and that trust building because you're texting or it's online or you're messaging online, you know. So you're missing half of that communication, so you can only trust half as well versus the people who are actually in the room, you know, because I can be texting and, you know, like have a straight face like the entire time, you know, you're
all talking to somebody else.
you know. Right? So I agree, like, yes I do, and I'm like rolling my eyes, you know, as I'm texting, you know, that you're missing that.
And I think being involved too helps with that bonding, because like, you know, I look at myself, especially with the church, and it's like I'm closer to people now than I was 5 years ago. Like so like that helps. Being around people helps.
And doing normal things.
Yes.
You know, I mean, just go for a walk, go for a jog, go to the zoo, go jump out of a plane, go ride a bike.
While not compromising
Like,
who
you
you
know,
are.
Yeah. But just enjoying, you know. I feel like I said earlier, it's like everything that people want to do, it's either involving the opposite sex or it's involving drugs of some sort. You know, I mean,
That's not all there is.
Yeah. You're not finding out who you are by doing that. You're not finding out what kind of person you are. You're not finding like how to build a relationship. All you're doing is just
you're getting high.
Yeah,
you're not
You're
here.
absent-minded.
You're not here. And then even being physically intimate with somebody, you're in a way getting high. So you're not here.
There either.
Not really there either. Like
You're never really there.
so that's not a good way to get to quote unquote know somebody.
Yeah, you get to know people when you talk,
When you're
have
sober minded.
conversation. Yep, that's right.
Yes.
So
And in person.
yes, yes.
So yeah.
Well, I guess we're done
Yeah,
because
that-
I think
that's it
our
for now,
time
yeah.
our time is out. So we'll
And
be back
we'll
next week.
See you guys next
Adios.
time.
Adios.
Bye.
Good night.
Thanks for listening. Join us for our next podcast. You can contact us through Instagram at podcast412 or email us at 412fight@gmail.com. See you next time.